Hi everybody, welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal Tim Gagnon, and today is episode 3 of our 3-part series on how to photograph your artwork. I'm really excited. We're wrapping it all up. We talked about lining things up. We interviewed a professional photographer to give us some tips and tricks, and today we're going to be taking that photo and bringing it into Photoshop so that we can do some final edits. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to show you a little trick with something called the distort tool. So if you're not familiar with Photoshop, this will be a little prep for you so that you can do a little tutorial. I'm really excited. So with all that said, let's get started. Hi guys, we are back from Bonnie's Lightroom, and wasn't she awesome? She is just, if you don't love Bonnie, there is something wrong with you. That's all I got to say about that. But we're back, and we got just a great conversation with her and some great advice on the inner workings of the camera. And I've got it back and set up in my studio. And you can see I got the camera on the tripod. I've got my light kit set up, and we're going to talk about the light kit in a minute. But I also have my piece of paper that is over my artwork at this point. And so what we're doing now is, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to get out of the way so that you can look at my light kit. You'll notice that it's made out of PVC pipe. It wasn't very hard. I think the whole contraption here cost me maybe 20 bucks, maybe 25. But all it is PVC pipe with some corners. I have 2 hooks screwed into the front, and that normally holds equipment. It holds my power strip and things like that. On the floor, I have a flat surface that it's weighed down, so it's not going anywhere. And then I have 4 clamp lights with kind of like a daylight light bulb on it. They're warm lights. You could put warm and cool to separate it. But what I have is I've got them clamped on here, 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 and here. And so they're focused on this area right here. And what we're trying to accomplish with that is to get even lighting. If you remember from my conversation with Bonnie, and I'm going to step back in, what I want to get, and the minute I do this, there's shadow. I want to get an even light across the entire sheet of paper. Now that is our first step, because if you have it, if it's brighter up here than it is here, that's obviously a problem. And so by having it set up exactly this way so that the lighting on the bottom and the lighting on the top and the lighting in the middle is the same, that is a pretty good indicator that you're going to have a good, well-lit picture. Now, with that in mind, we have to now check to see if the painting itself is going to be perfectly lit. And so I'm going to zoom in here just on this section. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to lift this up, and we're going to peel this paper back, and we're going to look again at the picture. And right away I see that we have a tiny bit of readjusting that we may need to do. It looks pretty good, however, so maybe not. Let me look at it on the screen so you can see what I'm seeing. And you can see if we zoom in a little closer, what you see is that there's really no glare at all. And I'm going to use something to point so you can see. Depending on where I'm standing, there's a little bit of glare here and a little bit of glare here. But when I stand directly behind the camera, which is right here, I don't see any glare at all. This is a varnished. The painting is varnished with a high gloss, and so you got to be careful here. But you see now that my painting is evenly lit, and it is also perfectly. There's no glare. So I have a nice even lighting, and I have a nice non-glare surface. Now with that in mind, we have to check one other thing. Because that tape was there, I'm a little concerned, so I'm going to make sure that it's level. And see that? I moved it just enough that could cause problems. So now it's level there. It's level here. It's level there. And remember, most importantly, it is level there. So it's X, Y, and Z axis. It is level. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to come in here and we're going to turn on our camera. And so camera is turned on. Yeah, camera's turned on. And if we look right here, I already have it set up. It's perfectly square in the thing. It's not wonky at all. And so I just want to make sure that I'm zoomed in correctly and that my focus is on. And if you remember, one of the things that we wanted to make sure was you want to make sure that your camera is far enough back so that the focus point of the lens that I have, if this was too close, it would warp, because the lens of a camera is round. And because of that roundness, it would warp the picture if I got too close. So you want to make sure that you're backed up enough. And then what Bonnie had said, between the 18 and the 55, right now mine is set to 35, which is just fine. So I'm not zooming in so much that I'm going to warp anything or change anything, and it's a nice perfect distance. So I got a good distance. If you're wondering about how far away I am, I'm about, I'd say I'm about maybe 5.5 feet away from the painting. I'm looking at the painting. I've got a perfect, it's centered in my grid here. I've got even lighting, and now all we have to do, and I have my setting set to P, just like she talked about. All my aperture settings are there. I'm shooting in RAW format, which is a nice, very crisp, high-res image. And then all I have to do is push the button, and there's my photo. So I've got my photo. I'll take a couple shots. I'll check it. It looks good. Take one more. And there's the image right there. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see that. And you can see there's the image. So awesome. All right, guys. Now, here's a question. What if you don't have a fancy camera? What are you going to do? Like, yeah, that's great, Tim, but I don't have a Canon or I don't have a Nikon. I can't afford that. But I do have one of these. Well, what do you do if all you have is your cell phone? Well, is it the best? Obviously not. However, if you've got a very well-lit subject, all you need is a tripod that can hold your phone perfectly level. And I just so happen to have one of those. I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm going to move the fancy Nikon camera out of the way. All right, so what I have here is I've got my cell phone holder. See, it lifts up and down. And what I can do is I can put my cell phone in here. Now I can do it either way. I can do it horizontal or vertical, just like that. Let me bring it up higher so you can see it. Okay. So what's nice about this little tripod here, it's a very simple, very light tripod, but it has an attachment to hold my cell phone. And again, I can hold it this way or this way. It also has a level on it here, so I can attach it. It can go like this. But it can also, with this, I can make sure that it's perfectly level. And that's the big, really, that's the important part. It's more important to guarantee that your camera is level than pretty much anything else. That is the most important aspect of this. Taking a picture with artwork is this going to be level? If it's not level, you're going to run into some problems. So what I can do is I can come in here with my cell phone camera. Now you want to shoot it with your, not their, don't take the picture with your selfie side, but take it with the actual camera side, because on most cameras, the camera side is going to be way more higher def than the selfie side. So make sure you're shooting that way. And then just set up your camera, set up your tripod the same exact way that you did it before. You want to put it into the good focal area. You want to set it where it's perfectly level. And then you want to focus in, just like this. And you want to take the picture. Just push the button, take the picture, and it's the same thing. Is it going to be as good as a professional, digital camera? Obviously, no, it's not. But this is a brand new iPhone. It takes phenomenal pictures. It really does. The biggest thing, again, that you need to worry about is the lighting. If this is well lit and it looks great, then this picture will be as good as it possibly can be. So that's really the big thing that we need to do, is make sure that this and this is level, that they look good, that this is well lit without any glare. Take the picture and hope for the best. But what do you do from here? From here, we have to take it into the computer. You need to make sure, especially if you're doing prints, or if you are going to be, if you're going to be putting this on a website or Facebook, you could probably go do the basic editing in a camera, especially if it's a cell phone camera, you can shrink it and crop it. You shouldn't be doing all those filter things, but what you really want to do is just crop it. But the best thing we need to do is take it into a computer using a software, a photo editing software like Photoshop, Lightroom, Paint Shop Pro is a pretty good one. There's a number of digital editing programs for photography that you can use. Obviously, I teach Photoshop at the local college. That's the one the best you should use if you can afford it. If you can't afford Photoshop, there are other programs, again, that you can use. But like Photoshop Elements is a great program. It's much less expensive than Photoshop. And really, in a nutshell, it's Photoshop with a few of the bells and whistles taken out. Like most of the graphic design and the 3D and the video stuff taken out of Photoshop. So it's like streamlined Photoshop just for photo correcting. But it's really, really less expensive. So really most people, all they need is Photoshop Elements. So, but if you can afford Photoshop Elements would be my next choice. Lightroom would be my third choice. From there, you could go to Corel, the Corel program that they have. The Corel Corporation, rather, has a program called Paint Shop Pro that's very good. And there's a few others out there if you research it and you're on a budget. But I'm going to be doing this and showing this to you in Photoshop as to what to do next. Okay, we're in front of the computer now. I got my Mac all set up, ready to go. I've got my memory stick from the computer, from the camera rather, in the computer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into Photoshop here, and I am going to do a new screen recording so that we can see what we're doing. There we go. I am recording. So now I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to go File, Open. I'm going to go to the memory card. And when you go into Photoshop, when you go into your camera and you take pictures, especially if you take pictures with RAW, your camera is going to give you two versions of every photo. It's going to give you a JPEG of the photo you took, but it's also going to give you a RAW photo that you took. If you have a Canon, the file name for your RAW footage is CR2, .cr2, and that is your RAW footage. In other cameras, it'll say RAW, a .RAW. Other cameras might have their own proprietary name for the thing, but a RAW file is a RAW file. When you open a RAW file in Photoshop, it's going to open up this funky window that you see here. And what this is this is actually Lightroom. So if you own Lightroom, this is actually what Lightroom is in a nutshell. Now, Lightroom looks different in some areas, in some aspects, but when they made Lightroom, all they did is they took this part of Photoshop and they pulled it out And then they gave it a few extra bells and whistles and a slightly different look, but really, when you open up a raw file in Photoshop, what you're really doing is you're opening up Lightroom. So just be aware of that. You know, Photoshop has two children, Lightroom being one of them, and then of course Photoshop Elements is the other child of Photoshop, and it is just Photoshop with a lot of things stripped from it. And so it's got a few little extra doodads and a slightly different look, but pretty much it's Photoshop with the graphic design stuff and the video editing and a bunch of other things removed from it, the 3D stuff removed, so that it's really just focused on photo editing. And so that's really the two programs. But this right now, I'm pretty much in Lightroom. So when you open up a raw file, it gives you these options. Before you actually open the file, you got to go through this window, and you can do color corrections over here in this corner. You can fix the exposure, the contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, vibrance, saturation, all these different things. You get your histogram up here. So you can affect it in some pretty dynamic ways. I'm just going to hit open image. One of the things about a raw file is that you can't, once you bring it into Photoshop, once you open it, you can edit it all day long, you can make your changes, but you cannot save as a raw file. You can't, it won't let you. That's because it's raw footage. It's there in case you have to go back to the original. You always have it. It's raw straight out of the camera. You can then save it as a JPEG, a TIFF, a PNG, a GIF, and it's a GIF, not a GIF. Look it up, it's true. But anyway, you can't save as a raw. So that's just something to think about. Now, when I look at this image and you look at this image, the first thing you'll notice is, hey, Tim, it looks a little wonky. It doesn't, what happened to all the make sure everything's level, make sure everything's straight? Well, guess what, guys? No matter how much you try to get it perfectly level and perfectly straight and perfectly right on angle, there's human error. The angles are so difficult to get. You're never going to get it exactly right. And this one is quite a bit off. And so how do we fix this? Well, that's why you have to bring your photos into Photoshop, a program like this, because I'm going to bring you some guidelines to show you that you can't just crop this image. If you crop this image, you're going to lose a lot, because look at this. Look how much we would lose right along here if I just cropped it. If I did this, right? If I did this, look at how much of the image we would lose. Now, would it still work? Yeah. And would most people be fine with it? Yeah. You could probably get away with it on you know, websites and things like that. But if you wanted to print this, it would not look like the artwork, and because it's slightly off kilter in its perspective. But the cool thing about Photoshop is you can fix this very, very easily. I'm going to get rid of this guideline. I'm going to show you how. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these corners like this. And somebody out there may know a better way to do this in Photoshop, but this is the best way that I know to do it, that's effective and keeps the photo in its highest resolution form without, you know, pixelating or warping it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go copy and paste. So I made my selection with my polygonal lasso tool, and I followed the painting, and then I go copy, paste. So I've pasted it. So there it is. This is the paste version. So I'm going to put a layer between them that is just pure black. Boom, there's the picture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to set it to inches, and I know that the painting itself was 18 inches by 24 inches tall, and I'm going to bring that at 200 DPI. I don't want to go too much overboard. And I'm going to hit OK. So there's the image. You can see it there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just click and drag this into my original image. Boom, and there it is. I'm going to put it on top so you guys can see it. And you see there it is. And you notice it's slightly bigger. See over here that goes off the screen. It's slightly bigger than the actual painting. So what I need to do is I don't want to enlarge the painting. If anything, I want to reduce it slightly so that it's guaranteed not to pixelate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my guides. And I'm going to bring some guides over and I'm going to line it up with the bottom part of the painting. Just like that. Just to give me a width of this white box. And I'm going to use the move tool, grab the corner, but I'm also going to hold the shift key down. That's going to force it to hold its ratio. See, it's not going to be like this. If I hold the shift key down, it keeps its ratio. That's what we want. That's important. And I'm going to line it up along these two guidelines. Boom, there it is. Now I'm going to remove my guides. Clear my guides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that box semi-transparent so I can see both the box and the painting. And I'm going to grab the painting layer and I'm going to come over here to edit. And before I do that, let me do this. Let's zoom in just a little bit so we can see better. There we go. Très bien. All right, here we go. Edit. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Here we go. Edit. Transform. Distort. The distort tool is really cool. It's going to be able to, we're going to force this painting back into the proper perspective to match our ratio. So if you look up here in this corner right here, I'm going to grab it and you can see what it's doing. And I'm going to line it up as best I can with that corner of the white 18 by 24 box. And then I'm going to come over to this corner and I'm going to do the same thing. Now you see that if you look up here, you can see that where the node is compared to where the actual painting is different. So you got to make sure that you're pulling the painting and not this. You pull the painting to where that belongs. And then I'll come up here with this node and I'll bring it straight up. And then I'll come over here. And now this one needs to come up and out slightly. And then you'll check the other corners. That looks about right. I'm going to hit enter. And then we can look and you see that the white area and the painting are lining up perfectly. So that's how you do it. Now what I'm going to do now is we need to crop it. So I'm going to hold the control key in a Mac command key and I'm going to click on the white box and it makes the marching ants march around that. And then I'm just going to crop the image. And then I'm going to hit Control D to deselect, and you can see there it is. There is our painting in its correct ratio, photographed well, looking good. Now I could come in and I could do color corrections. I could do all kinds of different filters to make sure that it's perfect. We could sharpen the image a little bit. There's all kinds of different things that we can do to play with this. But I think we've got a really good photo. I think we've got a good representation of the painting. So now it's just a matter of saving this file. And we'll go save as, and I'll just save it to my desktop for now. And I will call it Lady in Red. That's not the name of the painting, but we're going to call it Lady in Red today. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG, just a JPEG. And there it is saved like that. So we're good to go. I'm going to flatten the image. And then I'll hit save again one more time because we were saving it as a, I'm going to save it again as Lady in Red. So we'll go desktop and we'll find it just to be safe. Or we could just retype it, Lady in Red. That's what we're gonna do. LadyInRed.jpg. There it is. It's gonna say, do you want to replace it? Yes, we want to replace it. Bam, and it's saved. Now it's huge. It is 10.5 inches long by 15 inches tall. It's a big file. And just to show you again, the image size, it's 10.713 by 14.28 at 300 dots per inch. That is huge file, huge file. So I'm happy with it. It looks good. So guys, this is something that you can do. It's not that difficult. It seemed, okay, yeah, was there a lot of work to it? Yes, but not really. The key things that you got to remember to take the best picture possible is use a tripod. Make sure that you've got an evenly lit object. If you don't have Photoshop, that's going to be more key than anything, is making sure that you're perfectly level and everything's good. But bring it into Photoshop or Photoshop Elements or Corel Painter or Paint Shop Pro. There's a zillion programs out there. There's even some free programs that you can get online where you upload the image, do your editing, and download. So there's all kinds of options for you. But doing this simple photo retouching will make sure that your photo is a very accurate representation of your original painting, okay? You can do this. If you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below. If there's any new videos or topics that you would like me to address, put those in the comments as well. If you haven't already, please do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Hit the notification button so that you can be notified when we upload videos. If you're watching this on Facebook, hit the like button on the Gagnon Atelier Facebook page, and also share these videos. The more people see them, the more clicks we get, the better we can grow and do all kinds more great things. So I'm really excited for where we're going with these videos, and I hope you are too. Just remember, God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. We'll see you next time.